Hey there, everyone. I'm meteorologist Cassie Knoll, and this is your 10 weather impact for the week. Impact recap for the week. Oh, Lord! Oh, no! Take three. I promise. Hey there, everyone. I'm meteorologist Cassie Knoll, and this is your 10 weather impact recap for the week. Since the weather has been relatively quiet recently, let's start with a story about how science could be changing the agriculture industry. The use of artificial intelligence is growing in every sector of daily life, and this includes how food is produced. Industry experts say the use of precision agriculture has boomed in the last 15 to 20 years. Julian Kim has the story.
The goats will walk towards the barrier. They get that ascending tone. At the top of the scale, they'll get an electric shock.
Margaret Chalmers was pleasantly shocked herself when her grazing goats quickly adapted to virtual fencing.
It's very effective.
She hopped over from physical fences in 2024. You can't see it, but it's there. The GPS fencing uses cell signals to communicate with these collars. She can watch and move her goats by drawing the parameters with her fingertips.
It's a game changer. Like, the peace of mind of knowing where your animals are is a big one. The ability to start to identify one who's not feeling well because they're always lagging behind.
To put the benefits into perspective, she finally took a vacation last year. The collar costs about $75 per goat per year, which Margaret says is totally worth it.
I sleep a lot better at night.
Researchers at Kansas State University say the use of precision agriculture boomed in the last 15 to 20 years.
Almost 50% of the Kansas livestock and crop farmer, they are using the precision agriculture tools.
Tools like drones, satellite imagery, autonomous tractors, and various digital systems for decision making. Sensors on these drones, for example, can measure soil moisture, identify weeds, diagnose the health of the plant, and take plant body temperature for irrigation planning.
The main goal of the precision ag is to optimize the yield, crop yield, by minimizing the use of the input like a fertilizer or irrigation or herbicide, pesticide. So it will help to save the labor, and also it will help to save the time as well.
And as AI data becomes more dependable, Dr. Joshi believes farmers will eventually be able to trust more and fact-check less.
It would help to make even more precise decisions in our farm.
Faster.
Yeah, faster, yep.
Like most up-and-coming ideas, there are still limitations. Poor internet access in rural areas, initial cost of entry, data security concerns, and the education gap. Leanna Gurin with Bayer Crop Science says another barrier has been hesitancy and doubt from farmers to give it a go.
They want to be able to trust it, but they need to see it proven on their farm. And that's where we're really partnering together, where we conduct experiments with them.
Can we trust what exists right now, and is it effective?
What we might learn one year may not necessarily hold true the next year if the weather drastically changes, if commodity prices change, if there's a new disease pattern. But what we're finding is it's very important that we continue to have humans and have experts review the output, review the results, and also provide parameters to the inputs of these AI models.
Back here on the Storm Dancer farm,
I still think it's never going to fully replace the physical fence.
Margaret also worries about things like reliability and data security.
Who owns the data?
But as her business expands and the accuracy of AI homes in, she's excited about the possibilities.
It really is improving animal management as well as the land management.
Turning to the tropics, September 10th marks the climatological peak of the Atlantic hurricane season, meaning that the 10th is the day most likely to have a named storm. This year, the tropics are completely quiet, which is very unusual. In fact, since the beginning of the satellite era in 1966, only 2 other seasons have not had a named storm in the 2 weeks leading up to the peak of the season. 2025 now joins that list. As of this recording, we don't expect any tropical development through the weekend. The end of this month will mark 1 year since heavy rain from Hurricane Helene caused landslides and catastrophic flooding across southern Appalachia. The historic storm altered the landscape of our region, and one professor at Appalachian State is studying the ecological impacts of those changes. Walker Lawson shares the story from Boone, North Carolina.
For John Davenport, the damage from Helene is still revealing itself.
For us, still trying to understand. Like, you can see there's obviously big changes across the landscape.
His students at App State are logging data on everything from tree canopy gaps that helped fuel spring and summer wildfires.
Intriguing to see as you have those significant, we call them like canopy gaps now because the trees are down, what that will do to the forest floor community. Will that open it up for more species to colonize? And so more of those maples, those pines or beeches, or cherries, that's one thing that could be intriguing. But yeah, it's still early on to see. We can see those gaps for sure.
To streams that changed course after floodwaters tore through.
And what we've seen is that those channels, even though it goes back to those, they are significantly different. Like, there's a lot of silt and a lot of deposition of sand in some areas where my children like to swim. And that area now, we don't see as many fish.
Even studying the smallest survivors, like salamanders.
We sort of think that most of like the intact forest, especially for the terrestrial lungless salamanders, are somewhat still intact.
Wildlife research technician Ethan Furr says each branch they turn tells a little more about the story of this ecosystem and what its future may look like.
When we're seeing a lot of salamanders there, we can assume that it's a healthy ecosystem.
But both warn it's still too soon to know the full, lasting impact. Reporting in Boone, Walker Lawson, WCNC Charlotte.
In addition to ecological impacts, Hurricane Helene also destroyed mountain communities. And nearly a year later, people say they still haven't seen the FEMA money they were promised. In Swannanoa, North Carolina, neighbors met in Black Mountain to talk about the struggles their community has faced in the months since the storm. The area still doesn't have a functioning post office, forcing people to drive 30 minutes to Asheville to pick up their mail. And neighbors say critical roads and bridges are barely passable, and there's a lack of access to food. Leaders are putting the blame on the federal government.
The location where that post office was flooded. The building has not yet been repaired, and the federal government has made no effort to provide a temporary facility or even identify where the permanent facility will be placed.
Swannanoa was one of the hardest hit areas in North Carolina, where more than 100 people died in Buncombe County. Also in western North Carolina, a Vietnam veteran is getting some well-deserved assistance after Hurricane Helene destroyed his home. Nate Stanley introduces us to the vet and the team of people helping.
I says, "What's a frogman?" And he said, "Well, they parachute and scuba dive and blow stuff up and do a lot of shooting and stuff." I says, "I want to be a frogman."
David Hostetter's commitment to service is palpable.
I was the only volunteer that would volunteer. Everybody was told, don't volunteer for anything. You know, we don't have any fun if you don't volunteer.
The 80-year-old served 3 times in Vietnam.
But then during Vietnam, my second tour, I was stabbed and died on the operating table. Had a great out-of-body experience.
Now he faces another life hurdle. Hurricane Helene's flooding ruined his home.
Everything just floated, you know.
And washed away his driveway.
Looked at it a little bit and I figured I'm going to try to get by here. So I put my wheel in the ditch on the right and went past it.
David, who was once a selfless volunteer in Vietnam, is now the recipient of that same volunteer spirit as crews from around western North Carolina are here repairing his road.
And we're going to bench back up and bring fill dirt and gravel and rock back in to build that whole side of the mountain back.
Rodney Cole with the Paying It Forward Network is now working with other volunteers.
Helene Rising, which is Jacob. Jacob reached out to United Appalachian United Initiative and Bat Cave Disaster Relief, and we all came together.
And I can't explain how grateful I am. I just don't have words for it. But I'm grateful.
That was Nate Stanley reporting. David Hostetter has been living in a temporary cabin since Helene. He says he plans to demolish his home and eventually build a new one on the property. Here in East Tennessee, members of a church on the bank of the Nolichucky River in Greene County are celebrating the final step in their journey of rebuilding. The floodwaters from Helene ripped the fellowship hall of Unica Springs Free Will Baptist Church off its foundation. Church members say it was an act of God, but as Avery Gingerich tells us, they believe the journey since has been too.
Members of Unica Springs Free Will Baptist Church are hosting their annual homecoming. Leaders tell me that this year, they're not just welcoming back old members, but the future of their church with a new fellowship hall. Let my life be your life. Leaders of the church want this hall to be a hub of ceremony, contemplation, and celebration.
I don't think you forget it. You would want to forget it.
Pastor Earl Edwards says that is why they are opening it by reflecting on Hurricane Helene.
When you see it washed away, it's one of those things, like a lot of stuff, you take it for granted. And then it's gone, and you remember all the things that you do.
He says the raging Nolichucky ripped the old hall off its foundation and carried it into a tree line hundreds of yards away. The historic storm clogged the church with mud and left a scene behind that the pastor says he'd never imagined before.
Some of the biggest trees I've ever seen in my life, stumps and things, all off the bank there. All that had to be cleaned up, and it was overwhelming.
He says they began to rebuild and pray despite that feeling. Then the volunteers came.
I was watching the news and see all this, and they're talking about Irwin, and I think, who do I know in Irwin?
Handyman Brian Coffey knows the brother of a Unica Springs member. Coffey says that phone call led to multiple trips from his home in Nyota to the church. He says dozens of his neighbors joined him. From hours of construction to thousands of dollars in donations, Coffey believes God called him to help this church rebuild in less than a year.
I couldn't do it. We couldn't afford it, but God could. So it's amazing what He can do when you take the limits off of God.
Church trustee Dewey Edwards says everyone who has helped rebuild Unica are like family to him, bonded forever in faith, a faith that overcame a moment of darkness to remember the light that guides them through this life. From Unicoi County, I'm Avery Gingerich.
Neighbors in Jonesboro are celebrating the resilience and rebuilding of their community. Emily Crabtree spoke to organizers at an event honoring rescue groups and nonprofits that have pitched in to help.
Today, hundreds of people are scheduled to come out to an event here at Fender's Farm in Jonesboro to not only memorialize the lives of those who were lost during Hurricane Helene, but to also celebrate the progress that's been made in multiple communities since that storm.
The last year has been full of trials for flood victims, which is why nonprofit Hands and Feet out of Irwin created the Rise Up Hope After Helene event in order to bring people together.
Not just the flood victims, but the volunteers that helped all the way, and the community that came together in such a spirit during the flood times. We wanted to bring that back again and bring everybody united together to be able to have that sense of community again.
They say getting things going was not easy, but now almost 700 people are registered to come.
I think as of 2 weeks ago, we barely had enough money to get this event started. I think we had enough covered for the tent, and that was it. And then all of the funds have come through.
Though there are many things planned for the event, there will be a time of reflection for those who were lost in the flood.
We are going to have a candle lighting ceremony to really take a moment of pause and recognize those individuals that both passed away and some died as heroes. And we're not going to forget those people. We're going to continue to honor them.
And people who need help can find resources at the event.
I just want everybody to recognize that grief is okay. It's okay to feel what we're all feeling approaching the 1 year mark. You're not alone. There are resources available if you're feeling overwhelmed.
Now, those nonprofits tell me that even though substantial progress has been made in all of those communities, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done. If you would like to find ways to help out, we'll have that linked on our website, WBIR.com. Reporting in Jonesboro, I'm Emily Crabtree.
And now let's get a check of your 7-day forecast. Moving ahead, we have mainly dry conditions all the way through the weekend and a warming trend too, which means if you're going to be heading out to that Vols football game on Saturday, kickoff is at 3:30 p.m. against Georgia. And it is going to be a warm day with the sunshine and highs in the mid-80s and very light winds. It's going to get a little hot there in Neyland, so make sure you're prepared for that warmth, and highs could get up into the upper 80s by early next week. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, you can always get the very latest with your forecast with the 10 News app. It's free to download in the App Store.